All right.
Uh, I anticipate today's episode is going to be very easy. Gonna go ahead and log into Twitch so I could see everything. I don't think we're gonna have as many new people as possible because we're going out of the blue, but that's all right.
I'm not sure about that because I specifically told a couple of people to tune in,
All
and I'm
right,
about to share the link on my Facebook.
perfect. I'll go ahead and put that in boardroom. But this is I'm gonna go ahead when I have some listeners put a little primer. But I'm so excited. I'm so excited. It's feel oh god. Sorry.
Yeah, get this out of your system now.
It's not gonna get out of my system. I heavily depleted myself this month.
Yeah.
But we've all have. So
Oh, yeah.
I don't want I don't want to make myself sound like, well, I put the work in. Nah. Meanwhile, you saw AJ Styles put Daniel Bryan through a table.
So we actually are watching on Hulu because we don't have cable. So we are one episode behind on Raw and SmackDown until usually Wednesdays. Um, Clip that we posted in the chat, but I haven't seen the full episode, and I'm just living for the whole thing.
Everybody's in love with new Daniel Bryan, and I'm one of them. He's going for the jugular now. Rampant consumerism.
Deforesting China. I don't know. He's great. I'm not sure I'm into this whole real AJ Styles thing quite so much. It seems derivative, but the two of them just have such great in-ring chemistry. I don't think I even care.
Yeah, real AJ Styles is a throwback to when AJ Styles first debuted. He was very cocky. He was feuding with Roman a lot, and
That fits with his entrance music.
yeah,
Roman don't want none.
um, Ellie sounds a little quiet. Let me.
Oh no, am I quiet? What am I?
No. That's me. That's probably me.
Oh, okay.
You can adjust that in Discord.
Yep.
There are settings for it.
I'm gonna bump Ellie up because it's about how my computer interprets her audio.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it was weird because AJ was always kind of like the really cocky guy that cheated and he was so good, but he would still resort to cheating and was a jerk. And it took a big match with Shane McMahon in WrestleMania for him to wise up and go, oh yeah, I'm an asshole. I'm gonna be a good guy now.
And now he's like the faciest McFace face.
Next to Mustafa Ali.
Oh God, that's true.
Mustafa Ali. It used to be Gargano was the faciest McFace face, but now he's getting evil.
I can't. Like, I know that's what they're going for, but I'm just like, oh, all of this seems completely justified to me.
Oh no, I love it because he's basically I think what's really beautiful about Gargano's storyline, and I'm gonna say this before the episode, is he's only won one singles takeover match, and
Yes.
it's because he won because he showed mercy and compassion. Every other time where he goes like, I gotta get deep and bring out the darkness and fight Ciampa, he loses. He loses every time he turns into his dark side. Which I think is just amazing storytelling. All right, it's 7:30. That means let's put up the graphic. Bam! That was my Wayne's World sound effect.
Excellent.
Excellent. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else. Welcome to a special Tuesday episode of Backstage Pass. First off, I apologize for being away from the computer. Being away from episodes for so long. A lot of things has happened. We had a lot of shows, and a lot of shows comes with a lot of effort, a lot of meetings, and the podcast had to be pushed aside in effort of preparation. Now, this is a very special episode just because we didn't want you viewers at home to forget who we were and what we sound like. I like to apologize for the previous episode for sounding like a church mouse. I hope I sound better here. But
Waiting on chat to say
waiting on
whether or not you do.
waiting on chat. But this is a very special episode, a very monumental episode, because we have one guest, but two new people, which I'll explain later. Let's go ahead and check who's in the green room right now, and we have Rachel and Daniel joining us live tonight. Thank you for joining us. It's always an interesting conversation with you two around. Hopefully we're going to get more for curly battling a cough, but that's not going to stop us from giving you some of the best CWF related podcast content tonight. Now, tonight's guest is actually one of the newer faces in CWF. He was one of the showrunners at Sac Anime and is known for playing Tommy Wiseau and Commander Riker. It's Ryan.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Now, Ryan's our guest, but coming to you with our debut of our brand new co-host and a great friend of CWF is the one and only Ellie.
Drum roll.
Symbols.
It's me.
Oh, that sounded like a really bad Darth Vader.
I'm sure they can all imagine the fireworks in the background.
Yes.
As you make those effects.
I am trying to boost up Ryan's audio. Thank you, Ms. Guts. Yes. Unfortunately, Big Wes had to relinquish his position as a co-host with a real heavy heart. He has some medical necessities to take to, which has taken up most of his free nights. But both Wes and I made it our first priority to approach Ellie with the position of co-host. We love her work in the CWF as Sailor Moon, as Chun-Li. She's amazing backstage. She's an amazing. Well, both Ellie and Ryan are amazing human beings, and she carries a very unique perspective that I am absolutely excited to bounce off of.
And I am really, really thrilled to be here. I'm so honored that I was chosen. I feel a little underqualified, but I'm going to do my best to hold it down for Wes, who we will miss very much.
Yes. Now, let's go ahead and let's talk about the two of you. Ellie and Ryan, how involved are you with the convention scene in general in cosplay?
Maybe I should start by fielding this one. Yeah. I kind of dragged Ryan into conventions. He didn't object, actually. He kind of volunteered. But I've been going to conventions since I was 12 years old at JTAF 1, Japantown Anime Fair.
Oh my God!
Which, incidentally, I think is where I met Mr. Wendell for the first time, who... member of CWF that I've known the longest. But yeah, so I was going to conventions since I was 12. My dad, who was at the time as a cosplay photographer, was shepherding me around and got into cosplay photography as I got into cosplay. And then because he's so good at networking and would always volunteer his tech in the back of his van to help produce small shows, he got noticed by the Sac Anime convention running staff, and we sort of got swept up into costume contest producing. So aside from a couple of short breaks from that and from cosplaying in general, uh, it's been over 10 years for me.
Dang. And how about you, Ryan? What was it like being kind of thrown in head first into this wonderful, wacky, expensive world that is the convention circuit?
Well, first of all, I've been playing Magic the Gathering since 1995, so to call the convention circuit expensive, I find to be true, but perhaps only in a relative sense.
You're right. We only make a badge purchase every few months. Booster packs are weekly.
But yeah, I initially got involved in going to conventions with Ellie to be a supportive boyfriend, and then I found ways that I could enjoy them as well, which initially was going to Magic tournaments, actually. At the very first con I went to, Ellie watched me come in second in a Magic tournament. And yeah, from there, I really just learned to love this whole event producing thing. I kind of fell into it because we were friends of friends with this guy named Bill, who is the head of everything cosplay at Sac Anime and Silicon Valley Comic Con and a few other things. And
He's head of programming at a bunch of cons and just really well known and respected in the community.
yeah, so then his friend, how on earth did that happen? Anyway, we got asked to assist with running the costume contest, and then the woman who was sort of spearheading that decided she needed to step away because of medical and family issues, and then we, yeah, again, just sort of fell into being responsible for running the whole thing.
All right. So can you what are your exact duties with SAC Anime?
To date, it's just been that we direct and produce the cosplay masquerade, and we spend a few hours every day at the con tabling, telling people where to go for various events. We do some basic retail stuff, pre-selling tickets to the next show, that kind of thing.
All right. And now I know that we the masquerade. Obviously, a lot of moving pieces there. A lot of moving pieces that we take for granted because we only see what's on stage. But you think you could tell us like what's the hardest part about running it?
Politics.
Oh yeah, politics is pretty hard, but to speak more specifically, I would say that the hardest part is initially we had this huge problem where the cosplayers would all line up to get their costumes judged, and we'd have like a 2 to 3 hour block to get through them all. Um, and what resulted from this was that people would wind up waiting in line for literal hours in order to spend, say, 2 minutes in front of the judges getting their costume looked at. And that seemed really inefficient to me, and it made for sort
Yeah,
of a bad experience as the entrant.
yeah.
So
It's
I
time.
decided, what was that?
Oh no, I was just muttering in agreement, especially since it seems like masquerade. You feel like when you're involved in it, you're locked in at the end. Like there goes your day.
Absolutely.
Very
So,
true.
at the time, I was in the process of advancing professionally, and I was reading some business nonfiction. And one of the books that I read is called The Goal. And this is a very bad novel, but it's a very good illustration of sort of the basics of manufacturing engineering. And I applied a bunch of stuff that I learned in that book to the process. So I changed it so that instead the cosplayers got to spend 2 minutes in front of each of as many as five judges. So they get 10 minutes of experience getting judged. We started dividing them into pods with like 20 or 30-minute arrival windows so that people would only wait in line for at most 20 or 30 minutes as opposed to multiple hours.
Oh,
And overall, I think everybody got more of what they wanted out of it.
wow, that's a very scientific way of analyzing and breaking it down. I'm impressed. Oh my
It's
god.
been so great collaborating with Ryan on this because his process background is really strong, and I've got the years of competing, which gives me a lot of like empathy for what cosplayers want and need, and they're, as Ryan has taught me to say, voice of customer,
Voice of
so to
cut.
speak. Basically, you have different customers depending on. Actually, he's probably much better at explaining this than I am. Uh,
Absolutely, I'd love to. Voice of customer is where whatever you're doing, you have to figure out who it's for. Like, if it's at work, the customer is probably your boss, or if you're preparing a presentation, the customer is the people you're presenting to. And then the voice of customer is just that whatever you do should be guided first and foremost by identifying what your customer wants, and then you deliver that. Many times people focus on things that are important to them, or that have been important to past bosses that they've had, or that they think would be important to them if they were in the position of the customer, rather than actually understanding what the real customer really wants. And
Uh,
so people waste a lot of time and effort doing stuff
oh,
that the customer doesn't really care about.
I get
right.
it. It's kind of like actually asking someone what they want versus me thinking I know what they want.
And
Yeah,
it's
and
also a
it
matter of
goes,
balancing priorities, right? Like
yeah,
if you
it
have
is
multiple
because,
voices of customer, they don't necessarily align.
yes, and also your customer might want conflicting things that they themselves don't understand, but they might hold that one of those things that they want is more important than another.
I think it's actually really interesting that we're using a lot of organization and quote unquote business theory in cosplay because a lot of people would think that these practices only extend as far as the boardroom, when in reality, it's not necessarily a quote unquote business thing, but more of a systems thing.
It is, absolutely. Though I also want to stress that conventions are businesses,
Okay,
so
that
their
is true.
needs are pretty business oriented.
Because I remember the first time someone used business terminology to describe the CWF and its success, and it was they said it was an example of blue ocean theory,
Mm,
which was for those who don't know, blue ocean theory is if we were to view competition of like all the panels and all the shows as conventions as a fishing thing where we're all in little boats where we try to be outdo each other by being better fishermen. Blue ocean theory is literally just going somewhere else, finding a new untapped market, and just being the best because you're the only one doing it.
I literally just Googled that phrase, by the way, and now I want to read this book.
Now, now let's talk about the fun stuff. The fun stuff, which was last episode's question,
oh
which
yes.
was asked over a month ago, and it was a doozy. It was, if you were in the pro wrestling world, what would your pro wrestling name be, and what's your gimmick? Uh, Ellie, you sound really excited, so I'm gonna have you go first.
Sure thing. Um, so, a little bit of background where I work. There's a weekly question that we have to answer as part of our weekly status report emails. And the idea is that if the answer to that question is interesting, it'll encourage everyone to read the rest of each other's emails. And that never happens. But one of my coworkers asked this um, like 2 years ago. And I was so conflicted then, but I've been thinking of it ever since. And I only really got into pro wrestling as a fandom this summer because of CWF and the show Glow on Netflix. So I
Ooh,
hadn't given
glow.
it like a cohesive, like holistic thought when I'd gone into that. But anyway, the long story is all of that. The short version is my last name is Divine now that I'm married to Ryan. Like LED or Ellie Divine already sounds kind of wrestling name, but I would also be down to change my first name so that it sounds more like a ring name and less like my actual name. And then I think my signature move would have to be some sort of suplex because I'm a
Mm,
big lady and I've always wanted to suplex someone. And
oh,
I would call it the Divine Retribution.
oh, Actually, I think what it would be with a name like Divine Retribution, it would be more like a brain buster, where you spike him down.
Oh yeah, something with fury behind it.
Yeah, plant them into the ring like a cross.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Divine Retribution. Okay, that's. I like the fact that you yourself, your character's not leaning too hard on the religious imagery, but you can't not use Divine Retribution.
It's funny too because I'm pretty danged agnostic. So maybe I shouldn't steal that from somebody who would actually feel spiritual about it, but it is funny.
What about
And
you?
names are effective.
What about you, Ryan? Had some thought on the question?
Yeah, I'm not 100% on the name, but I know I would want it to be a like stereotypical sounding hyper macho name.
Like
Ba-
stud power or something.
well, literally Bash Howard comes to mind.
There's that
As we
glow
mentioned a little
influence.
earlier. Or like Liz Lemon's made-up boyfriend in the show 30 Rock, astronaut Mike Dexter.
I really live for these cheesy names.
Oh yeah, I love them. And I recently started working with a guy whose name actually sounds like it's made up, but it is his real name, and it's Barker Carlock.
Wow. Wow, that's the name lottery right there.
Yeah, it's quite the name. Very memorable. Anyway, though, my character, um, being a man over 30 now, I've really learned to recognize and appreciate and harness the power of wearing a suit. So I would wear a loud suit and I'd wrestle in the suit ideally. So I'd need to get some kind of fabric with a little stretch probably.
So
But
you'd Baron Corbin it.
yeah, but like
Ew, how dare you?
I'd look so much better than him. You wouldn't
Oh
believe.
yeah. You'd have a vest that fits.
Ha.
Because vests are for weirdos.
And then the way that I would promo and my character and my persona, my characterization, would be derivative of the character Blake, I think, from Glengarry Glen Ross, Alec Baldwin's guy. The put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers. That guy.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'd be like the mean businessman stereotype
Okay.
who is a heel but appeals to a certain subset of the population, and then another subset loves to hate him.
I see. So you'd be the mean business wrestler, but you'd also be cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Because people don't just think that this character in Glengarry Glen Ross is an asshole. They also idolize him to a certain extent.
Rachel has posted about the IRS. Have you ever heard of the IRS, the pro wrestler?
No,
There
no, I've
is
never heard of that.
his name was Erwin R. Shyster. He ended up being Bray Wyatt's father. Like he's
Oh.
he's literally his dad, and his gimmick was he was a wrestling taxman. He would wrestle in a white button up and a tie and slacks, and he would he had a feud with Razor Ramon, who was this kind of like Scarface, like Latin. I don't want to say gangster, but he kind of copped that vibe, and he would always wear gold chains, and he would try to like tax his gold chains and steal them so he
Is
could.
Razor Ramon not canonically a gangster? I always thought he was.
He never really did anything illegal in his promos, but he just carried that swagger.
Oh, okay. So he's more of just the bad guy character.
Yeah, he was
Bad
bad guy. Yeah, he was a Al Pacino Scarface ripoff. That's a very easy way. That's a very good way of saying it. All right.
Well, yeah, but Scarface he's a gangster.
So by association or extension, y'all.
Yeah, yes. All right. So here's my answer.
Totally. Yeah.
My answer is a doozy because I was talking about this with Kevin a long time ago. We had this conversation about 5 years, and I could even tell you Kevin's wrestler, but I don't think we have the time. But for me, like if I was in a wrestling fed, no lie, I'm not even saying this as a joke. I would want to be a jobber, right?
Oh yeah.
I want to be like a Kurt Hawkins jobber, or when Ty Dillinger was in NXT, always losing. Like a jobber with a personality where I get to do a cool move or two, but I'd always lose. And my idea was this was based off of an old Shawn Michaels Hulk Hogan match where Shawn Michaels low keyed Hulk Hogan by like overselling each and every move Hogan did. Like Hogan would punch him and he would fly out of the ring. It's hilarious. But I would call myself the overseller. My getup would be a straw hat and a peppermint vest, and my theme song would be the entertainer. And I would try to weasel out of all my matches by trying to give my opponent really good deals on junk they don't need. And I would speak in that old time. Listen here, all right, listen here, Dolph Ziggler. I know you want to fight me, but you know what I do know you want? A 40-inch TV. Yes, that's right. It's gonna fit right there in your locker room. And and I
That's
would
a really good voice.
thank you. And I would sell the shit out of everything. I'd be flopping around the ring like if somebody like he hits me in the gut. I'm like, oh no, and just be an absolute idiot because
Oh man.
in my mind, like as a jobber, I would be safe. Like relatively, like jobbers aren't in like cage matches. Jobbers aren't jumping off ladders. No one's gonna ask Kurt Hawkins to eat 50 million suplexes and fall on the concrete. Kurt Hawkins is gonna have a nice, long, stable career being a character, and that's what I want.
That sounds amazing. And so many opportunities to have prop comedy integrated. Amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean, someone's gonna hit me in the head with the TV. I think this is why I'm okay losing so much as Matty Shida, because I take a lot of joy in losing, which is weird.
Well, as Matt Ishida, since you're such an effective heel, also getting beaten up and losing all the time really helps you put other people over, and it makes the show better.
It is, it does, and I do take pleasure in that. But it's just one's first instinct when they think of themselves as wrestlers. Nobody goes, "I'm gonna be the guy who loses a lot." Woo!
Well, seriously, your characterization as Ishida when you make like the "I'm very upset at what just happened" face, it's unbelievable.
Thanks a lot. That
You'd be a fabulous jobber.
Thank
It
you.
just makes the audience completely fall in love with whoever just did something mean to you.
Now, reading the green room, Ms. Guts writes, Rachel, I thought long and hard about these things and also played worldwide wrestling. My name would be Dagmar Nichols. My gimmick is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and my signature move is a knee to the face called the temporary face tattoo.
Oh, it's perfection.
I love the concept, but I can also hear Michael Cole struggle with saying the name temporary face tattoo. Temporary face. It's
Yeah. A TFT.
yeah, TFT.
She just landed a TFT.
TFT.
I mean, Randy Orton's signature move is called the RKO, so you could totally do that.
Oh yeah, it would be TFT or I would I nah. I was about to say a name, but TFT's way better. See, as the viewers at home can tell, both Ellie and Ryan really love pro wrestling, which is quite amazing because, as stated earlier, they've only recently got into it over the summer. So, can you tell me what like your journey getting into the wrestling fandom? Because I gotta admit that it's not the easiest material to digest.
Yeah, totally. So, um, way back in, I guess, March or April or something, whenever Glow season one had been out on Netflix, I'd watched it. Fabulous. I loved the diversity of the characters, but I hadn't really thought much beyond that. Um, but whenever Fanimania 5 applications were announced, I remember looking at Robbie, who plays Moomin Rider and Princess Trunks, and most recently Giovanni.
Oh, Giovanni.
Oh, Giovanni.
Oh, Giovanni, I hate you. I hate. Hey, Robbie, if you're listening, I hate you. I hate Giovanni.
How could you do that to Pica Libre? No,
Mm.
we'll get to that later, I'm sure. But anyway, he posted the applications, and I had seen him and Rachel, who is in chat right now, uh, talk about CWF this, CWF that, and I didn't really know what it was about, and I didn't know that I would have any interest in wrestling, so I hadn't given it a second thought. But since I had Glow as a background, I was like, ooh, you know what? I could enter and I could be like Sailor Moon, but if she was in Glow. And then I entered the show. G came up to me and went, now here's a bunch of homework. And G, you started linking me to a bajillion wrestling videos.
Of
And
course.
you told me about Lacey Evans. And I just kind of deep dove into that. And then I was like, hey, wrestling. And so we just like picked up Raw and then later also SmackDown after the Superstar shakeup. We went back and like watched everything from the beginning of the year. So after WrestleMania and the Superstar shakeup, we were like, "What? No, we want to keep watching The Miz. We'll go watch SmackDown." And now we're watching both of them, and we're subscribed to the WWE Network, and it's a whole rabbit hole. And we're going to a East Bay Pro Wrestling show this weekend.
Hey, yeah, you two fell in, and I remember every time you were talking about something new in wrestling, it always warmed my heart because there were only three outcomes that was gonna happen. One was you're gonna fall in hard. Two, you were gonna fall out of it and be like, it's not my thing. I'll just now that I know what it is, I got enough. Or three, it's okay. I'll stay in it, but I'll only study it right before I have to go do CWF.
Yeah, we were definitely in the former camp, though it did take some getting into. Like, uh, I'd say, well, Ryan can speak for himself, but we really like Matt Hardy in this household. And I remember watching the very first episode of Raw that we sat down to watch, and Matt Hardy was in it. And I was looking at Ryan like, who is this wannabe cosplayer weirdo? Like, I don't understand at all what he's doing. And then the more we saw of him and the more we looked up of him online, the more we were just like, oh man, wrestling is just athletic and camp and drama, and I love all of those things.
So would you say that Matt Hardy was the one that made everything fall into place? Like, oh, now I get it.
For Ryan, probably. For me, it was Nia Jax.
Oh, Nia Jax.
Yes, because believe it or not, this is not my first foray into wrestling, but it's the first time it's stuck. Because growing up, I had a bunch of friends that were into WWF, and back then, the only character that I could play as that was a girl in their video games was China. And I was,
China was cool.
but I felt like that era of wrestling was not really for me. And then in 2011, I guess, I dated a guy who was really, really into WWE. And he showed me like the Yes movement and he showed me CM Punk's pipe bomb, but he didn't give me any context and he didn't show me any of the ladies. And I was like, toxic masculinity out of context, I'll pass. But this time around, like watching Naya for me, I was like, oh my God, she's super tall. She's, plus size. She's got all the hair extensions. She's got the gorgeous eye makeup. She's dressed like a mermaid. I'm here for it. Like, just a
Uh-huh.
that I could aspire to be like. And the second I started identifying with her, it was like an easy transition to identify with everybody else on the roster. And now she's not even in my top 5 favorites.
Yeah, no, I'm really I really like this era in terms of variety, and that's partly with how WWE is diversifying with pushing their talent, but it's also how we have, a lot more access to indie feds around us and the internet. Like nobody really knew about Japanese wrestling only until a few years ago. And if the person that you don't see yourself, if you don't see yourself in WWE's roster, you could go to watch APW or SPW, and there's going to be someone who looks like you, and it's great. That person's built like me, and they're kicking ass, and I love it.
Yeah, it's much more diverse now, racially, in terms of body type, in terms of athleticism, also. Um,
In ring
it's just
styles, it's
yes, exactly. Quiet.
hmm?
Well, I've just been letting you guys have your
Oh
conversation.
yeah, no, feel free to join in too, Ryan. It's your
Come on,
conversation.
you're our guest.
Okay, well, my journey to wrestling markdom starts in middle school, as it does for many boys, I think. Um,
Me too.
Back in the 90s, my friends in middle school used to talk about wrestling on a literal daily basis, almost nonstop. One of my friends' favorite phrase was, "Can you smell la 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 the rock is cooking," and so on. Uh, and I don't think I really got it fully until recently. But at that time, at that time, I was certainly not a smart mark. That's for sure. Um, but thanks to Ellie, during the course of our relationship, she got me interested in watching RuPaul's Drag Race, and then I think that primed me to appreciate camp just for the sake of camp. And then I realized watching wrestling that they've been faking it all along, and the point is camp. And so I just am here for that.
Oh, I I love my wrestling cheesy.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah, oh yeah. It has to be completely weird.
I want my wrestling like poutine.
There's this. Have you two? You two saw Southpaw Regional Wrestling?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
we
yeah. We watched
did.
that at the party with you guys.
Yeah. Is that the level of camp you're looking for?
Oh, that was outstanding. That was
I
brilliant.
think I think that was everything I want CWF to become, immortalized with our favorite in-ring.
Yeah, if we get to the level that we as CWF can shoot a series of videos that's that good, I think we can retire.
Uh, I think
But we
there's
shouldn't.
there's one of my favorite examples of how campy wrestling is, and was, remember season 2 episode 11 of Glow, where they just showed you a full Glow episode.
Ah,
Yes,
my
that was so
favorite.
incredible.
That it's just, I just remember I was watching that episode with Jill, and I was just yelling at the top of my lungs, going, "I want this! This is what I want! Give me! Just give me!" Um, the campy side of wrestling is something that's not really expressed a lot in like the main fandom, because to be fair, there's a lot of wrestling fans out there who just like want everything manly and cool, and I live for the silliness. Like, and my favorite thing is when something silly, something absolutely stupid is happening in the ring, but the crowd is just eating it up. Like in Japan,
Hmm.
they had a match between a table and a ladder. It was just a table and a ladder, and I think someone was like underneath the table and moving it around, and the crowd's all like, "Oh!" It was like that Japanese. It was a Japanese crowd, and like, "Oh!" And then you see a hand, and then a hand comes out, and the ladder falls like, "Oh!" And I just, I just, it's cooperative pretending.
Yes. I believe
Yeah,
when Rachel and Jack were staying over at our place, oh, for those who may not know about this, we all are great friends in CWF and sometimes hang out. hang out. And Ryan and I are a married couple within the group that has a house, so we like to try and host people um, and parties for the group. Anyway, so with that background, because I forget sometimes that there's more than just
Us.
the company listening to these things sometimes. Hi, other
Good
people.
good instincts. I was gonna do that
Um,
roughly, but you beat me to it, so A on you.
yes, so the the weekend of Krakencon, um, Rachel and Jack, who are in Sacramento, came to stay with us since we're in Richmond and Krakencon is in Oakland. So it was a really, uh, so we weren't like in a hotel on site, which meant that we couldn't stay out super late and stuff. But what we did end up doing was hanging out in the living room, petting my cats, and watching clips of stuff. And oh boy, I can't wait to have those two on this show. Like, not together, probably, because each of them deserves the spotlight
Amen to
separately
that.
and equally. But they just know so much, and they showed us a whole bunch of like really campy, really imaginative stuff, like
The freaking
the
invisible
invisible
grenade.
grenade.
Oh,
Yes, the
oh,
invisible
let's go,
grenade.
Chuck Taylor. You're the very best wrestler in the world. You're in better shape than Tyler Black. No, that's his chant. That is Chuck Taylor's.
Yes. And so just like I don't understand how someone can love, not admire the ingenuity that went into that, or I'm probably gonna misremember the name of the doll.
Yoshihiko.
Yoshihiko.
Yoshihiko. Yes, just the creativity there. And I told Ryan, I was like, I'm so inspired. I really want to, learn to do some wrestling myself so that I can, you know,
Wrestle a blow up doll.
yeah, I was thinking I would wrestle a turkey actually, like a puppet turkey. Um, because I really hate turkeys and they're my mortal enemy.
Turkeys, there's just something monsterish about the turkey with all the divots in its face and that long, gangly thing. And
And you can just tell from watching them walk around that this is a living, breathing dinosaur, and it will not hesitate to go Tyrannosaurus Rex on you.
yeah, and it runs at you.
They're aggressive.
I went to the San Diego County Fair with Jill, and they had a turkey race where they would load up an RC car with food and drive it in a circle while the turkeys chased it. And those things, I think I felt sorry for that car.
Yeah,
Oh
they're
boy.
fast as hell.
I've been chased by turkeys on multiple occasions.
That means you should look up the gobbledygooker.
When I was in college,
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was a series of local stories in the college newspaper, and also I think it made it into local TV news about an aggressive turkey stalking around downtown Berkeley and attacking people's cars.
I believe it. Also, Mr. Maltros brings up Chikara. Have you two heard of Chikara?
Oh
Yes, we have.
yes.
Okay, so Chikara, for all you looking to find to tap into your campy side of wrestling, is a comedy based pro wrestling fed where they do some of the dumbest spots of all time. Like, they will have a multi man match, and in the middle of it, they will stop to play Duck Duck Goose. Or there was one match where they had a Scooby Doo door spot where the face and the heel were running through doors trying to catch each other. It's delightful. It's dumb. Uh, there was a match, this was a good one, where the referee got quote unquote killed by a bullet and all the wrestlers were about to leave. And then the heel goes, "Wait, we can cheat!" And they all run back in the ring and they do illegal moves, which was wet willies and noogies and purple nurples.
We've definitely been watching some Chikara, mostly in the form of clips, mostly in Dalton Castle's clips, um, because we very much like him.
Oh, Dalton, you mean the peacock, right?
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
And the boys are just they're amazing.
Oh,
When
did
they like do the when they do the thing where they pull out their feathers and they fan people and they like blow them out of the ring.
do you know that two current NXT wrestlers were part of that group?
No.
Yeah,
They
Bob.
were the boys.
Yeah, I think it was Bobby Fish, and I know Bobby Fish for sure was one of them from
Oh.
Undisputed Era, and either Adam Cole wrestled them or he was one of the boys too. And I remember there was this one segment where the boys, I think it was Bobby Fish, his mask fell off, and everybody freaked out because like, oh my god, it's Bobby Fish. And then he just puts the mask back on, and everybody's like, oh god, okay, the boys are back. Bobby Fish just went away.
That's some respect for kayfabe.
Now
Well,
let's have now it's come to my knowledge that you two were at TLC.
TLC? Yes, we were.
Was that your first wrestling event you saw together live?
that was
Out.
our first WWE event. We did see the SPW Sac Anime show from the summer.
Okay, let's rewind to that one. The SPW show. So that was when Mario fought Phoenix Wright in the tag match.
Yeah.
Yes, though we were in the audience from the first round of CWF promos onwards, because we had finished staffing the masquerade and ran right over. And so we got to see the other SPW matches as well. And I would say that was probably our first. Oh, it counts as our first.
I'll count it as your first. So,
The Extreme Rules match with Sir Samurai, by the way, when they came out of the ring and were attacking each other in the audience, Sir Samurai put his opponent, whose name escapes me, into a chair literally next to me and was beating on him in that chair right next to me. They got sweat on me. It was incredible.
that's the magic of wrestling. I was in a match where a wrestler took my shoe off and threw it at the other guy, and then I had
He
to.
took your shoe?
He took my shoe.
Wow.
The heel took my shoe, and then the face brought him back to that corner, and he looked at me, and he's all, shoe me! And I threw my shoe at him, and then he grabbed it, caught it, and started beating him up with it. So,
Boot to the head.
boot, wow, Taekwon leap.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did it feel watching, going from a televised WWE wrestling show, that's how you consumed it, where you had the commentary explain everything, and having the perfect camera angles, to watching wrestling live in your chair without any quote unquote guidance from anybody?
Oh boy.
Minus sweat all over Ryan. How did that transition feel like?
It took a moment for us to figure out what was going on, and I think that understanding the show in the greater context of their series of performances, so that you know the whole storyline, would have added a lot to it. But the really good matches, like the one involving Sir Samurai that I just referred to, were completely riveting in a way that I can't say that I've experienced from live theater other than a very, very small handful of times. And one of those being like Hamilton or something.
Oh, Hamilton's great.
Yes, we did just compare SPW to Hamilton.
Yes, we compared wrestling to Hamilton. Eat it.
Well, what I keep telling people when they are surprised that I'm into wrestling because they think of me as a smart guy and they think that wrestling is for dumb trolls or whatever, is, wrestling is Shakespearean, but Shakespeare is 90% talking about whatever it is that's in the story, whether it's a comedy or a history, and then 10% carefully choreographed fight sequences with swords. But wrestling is that same story, except that they do it with 20% talking about the story, and then it's 80% fight scenes, potentially involving swords, but usually not.
Yeah, and usually there's some elements of Greek theater, especially where you have the old war veteran who laments about an injury, and then they go to a fight, and that injury comes back, and they're like, oh, my leg. But in this case, it's because Seth Rollins was in a figure four for 2 minutes, like, my leg. It's it's such it's such great physical storytelling.
It really is. And on that note, watching TLC, I had a similar quality of experience watching the Daniel Bryan AJ Styles match.
Oh boy, yes. But it was very different too. I'd say I was saying to Ryan the entire time we were at TLC, next time let's get floor tickets, next time let's get floor tickets, because what I assumed was not true. It was that the layout of the arena would be similar that it was when we have CWF SPW matches where there's a stage and an aisleway, and then on every other side of the ring there's seating. But surprised at how choreographed the live WWE stuff was for the camera. Like the seats were packed, but only on one side of the arena.
Oh yeah.
And so all of the camera angles on that side, making it look like a full house, but we were in an area that would never get like camera angles and stuff. And it was different, whereas the SPW wrestlers made a really huge effort to play to all sides of the ring, and when they went outside the ring they would like chase each other around and up and down the aisles, and it really felt like every side of the audience got some love there, and like we just weren't played to at all from our angle.
Oh, that's unfortunate. You know,
That does not mean it was not incredibly fun and super cool.
you know when I watched my first wrestling match live, it was in a school gym. It was an APW show. The first thing that I really noticed was the sounds. And there were a lot of moves that if I were to watch it on TV, I go, nah, it's just a splash. Like, you know, when like a lot of top rope moves, as a viewer, it's hard to impress you. Like, oh, it's just an elbow drop. Oh, it's just a splash. Oh, it's just an axe handle, because you see it so many times, right? But then you see it live, and then you realize how high they have to jump and how far they have to jump. And when they land, it's even if it's just a basic splash, I'm like, oh crap!
They're defying
They're
gravity
defying gravity,
for
or
reals.
or just how loud the ring is when they slam each other, and or when you hear a chop that goes across the room, it doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
register how painful it is until you see it live.
Oh yeah, definitely true.
And that's what I love the most is the sounds, and how I really have to really pay attention now. I don't need to have Michael Cole tell me what's happening or who to root for. There, I
Yes.
have the freedom to interpret the match how I see fit.
I think that was my favorite part of TLC actually, was just not having the commentary that you can kind of tune out most of the time, but then they'll say something that's just so ludicrous and you realize that they've been talking nonstop for multiple hours and that they're grasping it for things to say, and they just didn't quite get something that made sense out. It was so nice to be able to just watch the wrestlers, listen to their entrance music, and listen to the crowd, really. And TLC, in that you could tell that the audience was not on board with a lot of the stuff going on. Like Ronda Rousey up as this baby face that everyone loves and this huge star, and yet I would say at least half of the audience was sucks. Or people were chanting for AJ Styles, and in our section, I was going Daniel Bryan because he had just become new Daniel Bryan, but I love him so much, especially as new Daniel Bryan. I was like, God, I'm so here for this whole gimmick. Like, please, yes, get more political. Go even deeper into this. Let's talk about factory farming. Let's talk about all of it. Like the water bottle thing is just the merest tip of the iceberg, which is melting due to global warming. But you can save us. So maybe it was a Bay Area thing, but I would say at least a third of the crowd was also chanting for Daniel Bryan, and that was like heard on TV since his heel turn.
Yeah. I love New Daniel Bryan. This is not going to be the first time Ellie and I are going to talk about New Daniel Bryan, so get used to it. But I think it's really interesting how certain crowds in certain cities will like or hate a certain wrestler. Like Daniel Bryan looks like he's from the Bay Area. Let's be frank here.
He looks like a Berkeley
He
boy.
looks like a Berkeley boy, which, by the way, he's one of the professional wrestlers. He's a jobber. He's the Berkeley Brawler.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's part of a tag team where they're called the Millennial Falcons.
Oh my god.
Again, the campiness of pro wrestling is
Such a good
amazing.
meme. Such a good meme.
It is. But Ryan, what about your takes? Like, what was it like watching it live? Like especially TLC with with that crazy TLC match. Do you think you would
Well,
have got?
I'm with you on the sounds. That's a major difference watching the show live versus watching it on TV. The sound leveling that they do for the TV broadcast, I think, is very deceptive, and it really disguises what the actual environment is like at the live show. Like I've had a conspiracy theory for a while now that they do a lot to manipulate how loud the crowd noise is on the broadcast.
Oh no, that's not a conspiracy theory. That's a proven fact. When Roman Reigns was booed, a lot of times that they would actually pipe the sound down, so you can't
Right.
hear it.
Yeah, but the live show, just being able to hear all of that in a completely genuine way, is it makes the experience just feel way more authentic. Probably because it is.
Now, I know you mentioned this earlier, but we can't have an episode without the two of you and our love of pro wrestling without talking about drag.
Oh,
Yes.
sure.
Of course, uh, I like to I recently got into Drag Race, the wonderful fandom of drag shows, and it's funny because I'm coming into drag with a pro wrestling background, and you're coming into pro wrestling with a drag race fandom background. And I think it's really funny how the way we talk about drag queens is very similar how we talk about pro wrestlers.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest thing that really validates that comparison is the notion that these performers, outside of the actual scope of their performance professionally, are often referred to as the name of their character. Like, nobody walks up to Robert Downey Jr. in LA and actually just straight up addresses him as Tony Stark. But if you recognized your favorite drag queen, you might walk up to, Alexis Mateo or Alaska Edwards if you recognize them on the street, and you would just call them Alaska Edwards or, you know, whoever it is.
Yeah, like nobody goes up to Jonathan Good and say, "Hey, John." They call him Dean Ambrose.
Exactly.
But
But
I
they have a lot in common with regards to the humor in the camp as well. I don't know if you're caught up on Drag Race All Stars.
let's avoid spoilers just for our listeners. But
No spoilers.
but I am, I am.
Um, so might not be in the drag race. No, there's a challenge on the show where the drag queens are tasked with good humoredly insulting each other,
Oh, we're talking about the eulogy.
which is the reading challenge.
The mini challenge,
Okay,
G,
The mini
not the
challenge.
roast challenge that they also do very often.
yeah,
Yes, the roast is very similar in some ways, but the reading challenge, you literally just go down the line and insult everybody else in the room. And we do this sometimes in the Cosplay Wrestling Federation for usually like one of the mid rounds.
yeah. The mid rounds is when everybody kind of like the field has been cleared a little bit. You can now attack more people. You've already established yourself.
So it was watching Heat Wave, actually. We were watching the Heat Wave CWF video on YouTube.
That's the Arizona
And we
show.
were and Ryan had this epiphany about
Oh,
reading challenge and this thing that we do in CWF and something that often happens in wrestling.
yeah. So I'm going to jump in and talk about this.
Oh, yes, please.
The epiphany that I had, which I found to be really incredible, and I'm mildly embarrassed to say occurred to me while watching the two black competitors in the Arizona show interact, is that CWF and the Reading Challenge and all of this stuff is just another manifestation of this thing that uh, mostly black, mostly men folk do called the dozens. And this is something that I grew up participating in because, I mean, I'm from Berkeley, but I went to the public schools my whole life, and the Berkeley public schools are at least plurality black. So many of my friends like engaged in this, and I sort of learned how to do it. The Dozens is improvisational insult comedy, and that's where the concept of the Yo Mama joke comes from, and it's used in the same way as like battle rap is in the actual professional hip hop community, or the way that wrestlers do promos. They insult each other, they pump themselves up. Sometimes it gets really absurd and campy and out there and weird. Sometimes it's super serious and people take it too seriously and then they actually fight about it.
Sometimes
Uh,
it's personal.
Sometimes,
yeah,
also, real quick, hey Lance, thank you for your efforts of filming Heat Wave. You have two people who watched the show thanks to your efforts.
Yes, we quite enjoyed it also. It looked like a great show.
But yeah, yeah. So the dozen. So why is it called the dozens?
the origin of the phrase "the dozens" is not actually clear.
The
Um,
Dirty Dozens, right?
yeah, it's also known as the dirty dozens, but that's if you're like insulting each other's um, sexual organs or sexual
Oh
prowess
boy.
or whatever. But like, I don't think anyone really knows the origin of that phrase, other than that that's just what some sociologists who and journalists who first started writing about this in the first half of the 20th century called it.
Hmm. So that
But
was
it,
it.
it goes by many different names. Like my friends didn't call it the dozens. They mostly called it either clowning, ragging, checking,
S-
or snapping.
Yeah, I
Oh
think,
And,
snap.
I
and
think,
that's where "oh snap" comes from, and that's where the concept of the "oh mama snap" comes
yeah,
from.
I think for us it was just. I don't think we never had a name, but we definitely knew. Like somebody would throw an insult, and someone would throw it back, and then everyone's like, "Oh, let's go, let's go."
Hmm.
Now, the critical thing about the dozens, which is also pretty true of when you watch this happen on Drag Race or when you watch this happen in wrestling, is that generally the winner of a game of the dozens, or rather, generally the loser of a game of the dozens, is the first person to take something seriously. So the idea is to give escalatingly vicious and personal insults to each other, and then the winner is whoever doesn't break.
So it's more about. So in essence, offense is just as critical as defense, maintaining your cool.
Yeah, exactly. And there are theories about the origin of the dozens that have to do with this, where the idea was that it was a manifestation, or rather, that it was a strategy to toughen oneself up and to toughen each other up
Looks
because
like
of how oppressive and racist our society was to black people and especially black men in this pre-war, like 1900s through 1940s period when it first started being recognized by sociologists and journalists.
I heard a similar theory when I took a class on the history of comedy. Meanwhile, Real Human Being writes, it's called the dozens because it was a tradition of using 12-part rhymes in your roast.
Oh, okay. Well, that figures.
Thank
But
you for schooling us.
yeah, that's thank you, Eric. Now, I the the one thing that really fascinates me about how the drag circuit works is how queens go, oh, I did a show with this queen, and I do a show with this queen, and then when you go to a bar, and then they say, hey, these are the queens we have tonight, and they line up the list like they line up a wrestling card. And
Ah,
and that's where it started to dawn on me, where like, oh yeah, Monet and I were in this one club. We worked this circuit. We travel up and down. We hit all these clubs, which is kind of like all the small house shows a wrestler hits up.
Very true.
Like how
Support your local queens,
yeah,
folks.
support your local indie feds. And then they'll tell me like, oh yeah, this queen, she mainly works out of San Diego, and everybody, she's well known only in San Diego because she doesn't travel a lot. But this like Ben de la Creme is all over, and blah 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 blah. And I'm all, this is starting to sound like wrestling. This, especially with how, oh, she's got this signature look with the way that she does her eye, like Trixie Mattel. That's her thing with the cheekbones. That's her
oh, it's like
look.
a signature move
Yeah,
or
it's like
finisher.
it's like a signature move and a finisher.
Some
And
drag queens even have a signature move, like Laganja.
Laganja Estranja, yeah.
Exactly,
oh,
Laganja Estranja with the signature death drop.
or right now with Monet Exchange with the fake out death drop.
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
exactly.
Or Monique's brown cow stunning.
Well, not only that, but you got queens of different disciplines, just like wrestlers of different disciplines. Like you would, like Manila Luzon. If Manila Luzon's lip sync psychology was to be applied in pro wrestling, she'd kind of be more like a
She'd be
technique.
like Chuck Taylor.
She'd be like, well, maybe not really Chuck Taylor. I'm talking about in what she does. She'd be more like a Daniel Bryan, where she wins matches
Yeah.
with technique and understanding the song over like flips, death drops, and gimmicks.
Ah, okay. So
Yeah.
someone who's more athletically oriented, like Bobby Lashley, would be a queen who's really well known for dancing, like Coco Montrese.
Right, and a queen that is known for really big moves and high impact splits would be like a cruiserweight or like a Mustafa Ali or a Cien Almas.
Okay,
And
and that would
then
be like Laganja Estranja.
Yeah,
and then
or
there's only people who look like they're physically intimidating or impressive, but their physicality is not great. I don't know. Cameron Michaels? Shade.
and if we even want to take this, if we want to even have this go a layer deeper, crap! I just lost my train of thought. No.
Are you going to talk about outfits?
No, it was that's it. That's it. If you took the WWE wrestlers, they would be so different types of like Bobby Roode, pageant queen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
He'd wear sequin eleganza for days.
Undertaker, goth queen.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then someone like Acid Betty, who wears really weird stuff, would be a wrestler like Bray Wyatt, who performs in a really weird manner.
Yes. Yes. Oh, hello, Azure Mage. Obasu's here. Obasu's in the green room. I said your name like 5 times in a sentence. For those of you who would like to know, Obasu is the key person who got us into Arizona.
Yay!
But this conversation,
First Lady GM, right?
yes, our first lady GM. Obasu was at our first ALA show, so it's really cool to be working with her again. But this conversation that we're having, talking about queens as wrestlers or wrestlers as queens, it's probably my favorite aspect. And this is gonna be like what Jack's episode will eventually be, but it's understanding the essence, spirit, and tropes of wrestling and applying it to things that are not wrestling. It's my favorite thing to do.
I want to
Circling
say,
back
by
to
the
the very
way,
first thing we talked about,
before our New Year's
wrestling
Eve party,
professionally.
before our New Year's Eve party really got started, when you guys were out picking up Eli, Jack and I had the most amazing conversation about theater and wrestling, and I'm super excited for you to have them on the show and to talk about that.
Oh
I
yeah,
really want to hear way more of that.
Jack has hinted on on subjects such as talking about clowning and like actual a clown routine and comparing it to a wrestling match, and I can't wait because we're gonna get nerdy.
Jack,
Yeah.
I think that every time from now on that I perform in CWF, I'm going to be thinking about what you said about how wrestling is about justice. And you can either have justice denied or you can have justice fulfilled. But either way, you're telling a story about justice.
Oh, wow. Don't steal their
Wow.
material, hun.
Yeah, don't do
Okay,
that.
I'll stop stealing it.
That was like probably that was the second most mind-blowing comment I've listened to outside of saying that Disneyland Dark Rise is an example of second-person storytelling.
Ooh, we getting into some theme
Whoa.
park analysis now, eh?
Well, I just finished an episode of Defunctland Coming Here. I love theme
Hmm.
parks, but we could push that off to another time. I'm doing my best not to bring up Game Center CX because Chief Arino is the ultimate babyface.
The second you mentioned Arino Cacho in our group chat, I was like, oh my god, I cannot believe I didn't think of it. But of course, G loves Game Center CX.
What is
Like, of course you do.
okay? I need to ask. What do you mean? Of course, like
Okay, so I know that you are big into pinball and arcade games and all that. And my first exposure to Game Center CX was their episode that featured Musea Mécanique because I am kind of an animatronics nerd that. And so I've been, to the museum a bunch of times, spent so many quarters there, and I was just like, "Oh, this is really cool." It's like my interest in Japanese culture and Japanese games meets a little bit of San Francisco history, and then like it all just kind of clicked into the place the second you posted his photo. I was like, oh, of course, yes, of course, this all makes sense now.
oh, I like the Cacho just because he's just such a lovable baby face who keeps losing and he can't help himself, but he always just slaps on those heat pads and
Yeah,
powers
I
up.
Tim because I was also really bad at games. I still am. I work at a video game company and I don't like playing games because if then I can't get anywhere, and if it's easy then it feels like work.
Now, now it wouldn't be a proper introduction to the episode without talking about Sac Anime.
Boy.
Yeah, which
Yes, let's
was
talk about Sac Anime.
well, in terms of um, Ryan was one of the showrunners at Sac Anime, and Ellie was one of the champions who walked away with the belt at Sac Anime. So
Yes, indeed.
it was I like to bring this up just because this marked a huge change in your involvement in CWF, where no longer like one is now a champion. Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
I was absolutely thrilled when I saw that photo. I mean, I would have been thrilled if Isaac won, but still, just woo! I'm happy when anybody has the belt. Okay, that's just. And now you will know the pain of a champion.
Oh boy.
And Ryan went from advisor to Ellie to performer, and now showrunner. So I just wanted to talk about what was your experiences with like we'll start with you, Ellie. What did it feel like to win?
You know, I've wanted to win, and I've wanted to specifically win at SAC Anime for the Blackout belt ever since I started really with CWF.
Wow. So
And
you
it
were
did not
eyeing.
feel, yeah, I wanted to debut at Fanime because the timing worked. I had never watched a Fanimania show. I had only really seen the Sac Anime shows, mostly because well, Robbie and Rachel were both in them. And so when I was like doing my research on CWF, trying to figure out if I should apply or not, those were the ones I watched. And it it still feels really surreal. I know this might not be apparent to somebody who was in the audience or backstage helping facilitate or watching the stream at home. But the SAC anime show is really rough. It rattled a lot of our performers, myself included. Most of my time backstage trying not to vomit because I had really, really awful anxiety about going on stage. I'm not usually super stage fright, but I can only describe this as stage terror.
It's a lot of pressure.
So so winning in spite of the audience and the trials that went along with that audience, it felt more like a relief and less like a joy, which is regrettable. But I've been reflecting on the post-show feeling a lot recently. I think after Krakencon and after HentaiCon, which I performed at both times and Ryan performed at both times, we were on this emotional high. And I remember being at HentaiCon at the end of the night and about to get in a lift to go back to our offsite hotel and looking at him and thinking, this is pure bliss. I feel so content right now. I didn't make it to the finals, but it didn't matter. We put on a great show. Everybody was so awesome, wonderful friends, and we're so lucky. And then after Stack Anime, in contrast, I remember thinking, great. And then I wasn't able to sleep that night. I was exhausted emotionally and physically and mentally, and I could not fall asleep for the life of
Oh,
me.
shoot. If it's anything,
It was so tense.
you were responsible for my favorite quote at HentaiCon. My favorite moment was from you, and it wasn't something you did during your performance.
Oh?
Yeah, it was the final round where Rico was going, where Killer T Cell, played by Rico, was going up against the Get Cable Company, which was Sam and Robert. And I remember when Rico was about to go on stage, and I was just standing next to you. I moved next to you to get a better view, and I heard you with like your fists all clumped up, like balled up together, like you're watching a superhero show. You're going, "Come on, Rico, come on!" like to yourself. And I heard that, and I went, "Oh my God, this is the greatest feeling ever." Is that we weren't watching the show passively or taking notes. Everybody was just like, Killer T, come on. And I got swept up in it. I was like, come on, Killer T, come on.
It really felt like his time. And I've known Rico for a long time too. Um, a pretty substantial chunk of the CWF roster before I actually joined up, but I've known Rico for a long time too, since I was a teenager. And watching him perform and grow as a performer has been really cool. Like one of the extra added benefits, and I've gotten to get a lot closer to him. And I remember watching him at HentaiCon, and it was like something had unlocked for him. I was like, this is it. This is his time. This is it. This is the character. He's got this. He's going to take it all the way. The crowd loves him. It's going to happen.
Oh my God.
And
You're totally
it was
having
just great.
you're having the anime moment because
Oh, God, I will mark out on everybody on the roster if you let me.
oh, not that. I'm not talking about that anime moment. I'm talking
Oh.
about it's what I tell Kevin. Like I tell Kevin, I know when someone's gonna win, and he's like, "How?" Because I said there's this golden wave of momentum, and I don't know. You just look at them, and they're just extra shiny that one night,
Oh, yeah.
and you just had it. You had it without realizing it. Oh my god, I'm marking out because it means I'm just my brain's not crazy. It sees it.
Definitely felt that way. But I don't know I don't know about anyone else, but I'm just really proud of what we did at Sac Anime. Like, anxiety aside, crowd issues aside, like I tapped into something really good here. Uh I had been planning some stuff in advance and it felt like it came from a genuine place, but in the moment it didn't feel genuine. I wanted to say something else, which was in response to Pika Libre's attack and the audience reacting to it. So I thought instead of forcing myself to say something that I don't mean in the moment, even if I mean it when I conceived of it and was planning for it, I just wanted to go with my heart and carried me. And now I've got to lean into that social justice warrior aspect because I think that's what put me over in the end.
And Ryan, not to get you out of the conversation, but what was it like experiencing the show from the backstage? Because I mean, you always had a backstage perspective at first, then you came on, and now you're kind of in a semi-managerial role. Was
Oh,
it
yeah, I don't know. It felt very natural to me, probably because I'd been doing the Sac Anime Masquerade production for a couple of years now. So it really felt a lot like the Masquerade, except that I only had to manage half of it because the SPW folks managed themselves, and we had only like 11 entries, which is literally 10% of what our typical summer Masquerade includes as far as number of contestants.
so that's 100 people for those who are trying to keep count.
Yeah, we cut it off at 100, or we sometimes stretch to 110 if we think that there might be a high dropout rate. But we usually get at least 90 walking across the stage.
Because I remember for the Sec Anime show, a streaming company named Unlocked wanted to introduce their service and they wanted to stream the CWF, which is probably one of the best decisions they ever made. But from what I heard, Ryan, you were directing traffic with that stream.
Yeah, what I didn't know when I started talking to Unlocked was that they had only lined up the voice actors for the first like half hour to 1 hour top. And I knew that the voice actors would not want to stay through the whole show because it's a dang 3 hour show and
So,
no guest of honor at a panel. That. But I didn't know that they were going to leave so quickly. So that immediately left them with no talent for their production. And then their director, this guy named Peter, told me that if there's anyone I want to put on there, let's just do it. So I went through everyone I could think of on our roster who was interested. And then I went to Sir Samurai and I put him on along with Rachel. And then after them, I said, "Hey, Sir Samurai, is there anyone you want to have on the show?" And he saw this wrestler from SPW named Sanders. Sanders. His wrestling name is Sanders the Wrestler, and uh, he went on the stream for the last like 40 minutes or something. I think I heard, and he was just incredible. I would walk by the table and hear what he was saying, and he was marking out over the CWF people. He was marking out over the SPW people. He did a really fantastic job of contextualizing our show.
which I think is always the hard. It's always the hardest sell, wouldn't you agree, Ellie? Like,
I
hey,
would.
this is a wrestling show with zero wrestling. Every time you bring up the zero wrestling, there everybody's faces go, "Yay!" To huh?
Yeah, but he didn't mention that at all. He didn't acknowledge that at all.
Oh, that's
He just talked
perfect.
he just talked about our promos as if we were real wrestlers actually wrestling each other.
I
Oh
went
my,
back and I watched the whole thing. I used my unlocked free trial and everything because I'm vain and I wanted to see A, if that camera angle and audio equipment picked up a different set of chants than our stream, and B, I wanted to see what people said about me because, again, I'm vain. And he had the greatest things to say about everyone. Just, he was talking about All Might and how he's like the biggest hero right now. He knew his stuff. He knew was. He kept referencing things like, oh, well, if she can beat the Negaverse, then she can beat this guy, stuff like that. And I really appreciated how committed he was to our kayfabe and how respectful he was of our concept. And I really hope that if he's out there and he's listening, that he hears us talking
Oh
about
my
him
god,
and how much we love him.
I wish we could like just save that and keep it. Oh, it just sounds fantastic.
I really want to talk to the Unlocked people about getting a copy of that archive because the comments are not great because they're from people all over the country. So people without Sac Anime for context probably didn't really get why we didn't have wrestling in cosplay. Um, and some of them were there for only the cosplay, and some of them were there for only the wrestling within the chat. And it showed because of their comments. But
Mm-hmm.
just the commentary was great. We had so many of our people on commentary too. Daniel as Skeletor kept popping back there after every round to make a comment about what just happened and progress the storyline, and it felt really cohesive. And Nico, who did Guy Fieri to great effect, was on for part of the SPW matches and was saying things like, "Oh, that move was so spicy. I'm gonna need the recipe for that." It was just great
Stop!
because
Wait! Stop! Just hold it! Hold it! Oh my god! Guy Fieri food puns in my wrestling.
it was amazing.
I
And
need.
he was on with two SPW wrestlers. I don't recall who. He was on with two of the guys from SPW, or one guy from Unlocked and one guy from SPW, but they were talking a lot more about what was going on in ring, who was doing what, and could just make color commentary, throw in a couple of adjectives in character, and just the whole thing, the level of camp and wonderfulness. I was just like, oh, I really hope we do this again. Even if we don't do this with Unlocked, it would be really fun to collaborate with the SPW guys and maybe do this for the stream or something.
Oh my god, that would be so cool if we, because Mission Start Podcast is always, he really wants a portable computer slash PC setup, and if we could just have a commentary channel, like in between the promos, oh, that would just be icing on the cake. It would be hard to find people who would be available, especially at the bigger shows, but it would if just. Oh man, my mind is racing with possibilities, and my imagination is going
Well,
crazy.
I think that if you've said about anime bears out, and that you can't actually have everyone who wants to be in the show on the roster because there's no space, you could divert some of our talent to doing that sort of thing.
Oh man, that would be something, and it would just be a great bonus because I'm I'm a huge stickler with making the home experience of the show feel different than the live experience, and
Which,
that
by
Sure.
the way, Skeletor did an absolutely fantastic job of at ALA.
oh,
And Sac Anime.
and Sec. Oh yeah, Skeletor is on fire right now.
He's just bones, but they're on fire now.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought we were talking about Skeletor, not Ghost Rider.
Oh, God.
Whoa, boo.
Stealing that. If
Boo.
Sailor Moon and Skeletor cross paths again, I'm stealing that. Consider it stolen.
You hear that, Daniel? We're already pre-writing lines against you. But, yeah, it was a real busy few weeks. Got to talk about drag. Got to talk about sack. Got to talk about a little bit of cosplay. A little bit of business theory. That surprised me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan has been using his promo skills to negotiate a raise and a promotion at work. So, heyo.
It's
Does
so useful. being able to just like talk unabashedly positively about yourself.
Do you refer to yourself as in the third person? Ryan has been here day in, day out, crunching numbers, crunching facts, making customers smile, and
I'm the most underutilized member of this team, and if you don't recognize that, there are a million other companies that would be lucky to have me on the
I
roster.
will
I mean,
be
payroll.
I will be the hottest free agent in IT and tech and engineering.
Yeah, something like that.
As long as you don't turn heel on your boss.
It sounds like you were starting to wrap up the show. Is that what you're going for, G?
Yeah, we definitely hit the hour and a half mark.
In
And
that case, I do have one more thing I want to say, and that's that we had a great conversation at late night dinner after the Sac Anime show about our dumbest CWF character ideas, and I realized that I had already had three of them that I forgot to mention in that conversation that I want to share with the CWF
oh,
universe right now.
okay. So this is Ryan's 3 dumb CWF ideas.
These are my
They're
three
beautiful.
dumbest CWF ideas I've ever had. Number three is Job Bluth from Arrested Development.
He would enter to the final countdown, of course.
Oh
And I
god.
would talk about how expensive my suit was, and it would get escalatingly absurd. At one point, I might pull a dead dove out of a bag since we have a prop dead dove, which Ellie used to great effect at HentaiCon.
Oh, I remember that thing.
Yes,
Uh,
my bribe.
Idea number two is Derek Zoolander.
Oh my! Oh, stop right there. That is not dumb. That is glorious. You keep that. You you can't turn left during your promo.
It
And he
would be
would just
incredible.
keep going, but why male models?
We actually had this idea when we were trying to brainstorm a commentator slash manager character that I could be if we were to be producing the Sac Anime show, but like have characters to do it. So this would be my equivalent of like a Mr. Hiki character would be me as Derek Zoolander.
But why models? I think Derek Zoolander could be one of the very few characters who could comment how there's no wrestling and has to be reminded that there is.
Yes, exactly.
And
It would be like a the Emperor's New Clothes thing.
Obasu says, yes, please, Zoolander.
And then my number one dumbest idea, which I am very, very strongly considering actually doing. I brought this up with you the other day, G, but it's Waldo from Where's Waldo? But he would promo like Braun Strowman because we realized that I can sort of do a passable impression of Braun Strowman's voice and vocal style. And he would enter to the song 500 Miles that was made famous by the show How I Met Your Mother. Like, I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more. And he would talk about how he walked 500 miles to get to this show, to get that belt. And once he has it, he's going to disappear.
Waldo.
You'll never see him or the belt again.
So Waldo would be a heel, huh?
Yeah, he would be a heel.
Does that
because he
mean?
wants to take the belt and then disappear with
So
it?
does that mean if you were the champion, your big championship entrance is you just have an army of Waldos because every Wells Waldo book has the Waldo World page?
That would be really incredible to do if I could get like a group of Waldos to do it. That would be a great idea. But like he's already got a fan club, the Wally Watchers, that follow him around in the books and also outside of the books. Like that's just what people who show up at these Waldo meetups call themselves. You can buy the costume for like $30 at Party City or something. He wears glasses, which I do seriously need glasses in order to
You
see
need those to
anything.
see.
You know you're asking yourself a feud with Carmen Sandiego if you go as Waldo.
100%,
I was saying that
absolutely.
too.
A Carmen Sandiego feud would be amazing.
Or a tag team.
Or a tag team.
Oh
We
man,
could feud and then we could unite and tag team later.
what would be their name?
Probably something punny based on You Can't See Me.
Yeah,
Either
you
the-
can't see us.
both characters have the word
Where are we?
Yeah, where. Both of them is Where's Waldo and Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. So I feel like Where should be in it.
It could chant like the New Day, but instead of who, it could be where.
Where? Oh man.
So those are my 3 dumbest CWF ideas ever. I wanted to get that out.
Waldo's not dumb, and Zoolander's not dumb. Oh, there we go. Black Freight writes the Globetrotters.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
That's really good. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, this was our first episode with Ellie as co-host. How do you think she did? Green room, please.
Yes, shower me with praise.
Please.
No criticism.
And Ryan, thank you so much for sharing your cool, level-headed insight with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, right there. Look at that. Azurmate, good job. Yep, here come the flood of praises. The green room is running wild. Ellie rules.
Be gay, do crimes.
I guess the way that I'm going to close this out is a question. But I feel like, Ellie, you want to ask the question for next episode? If you got anything.
Do I have a question? That's the question.
Oh, that's a question.
If you want a suggestion, I would propose that it be what are your top 3 dumbest CWF ideas.
All right.
Yeah, the top 3 just silliest ideas you kind of want to do.
All right. I got this. You're talking to me, remember?
I've got 2 weeks to think of stupid ideas that aren't actually viable.
Yeah, don't. Be careful. You might end up wanting to do these. All right, so that's it. Top 3 ideas that you want to do in CWF, or top 3 dumbest ideas that you want to see in CWF.
Jesus Christ, that's a lot of ham.
It's just a way to spin the question, because some people can't find it less interesting and think of stuff they would do as opposed to stuff they would want to see.
Yes, definitely true.
But yes, this is our. Thank you for tuning in to our special Tuesday episode of The Green Room, featuring both Ellie and a better microphone from yours truly.
We have a special sign-off?
No, we never really had a sign-off. Wes always found a way to go like, and see ya, and then I'd hit the button.
We have to discuss our dynamic.
We will. We'll discuss it. It's still feeling out, but I will say, oh God, I'm trying to do some stalling no jitsu. I'd
See
say
you next time on CWF Backstage.
thank you with the save.